Hey everybody, welcome to the Leek. I'm John as always, and we just had pre-release this weekend, which means that it's time for my traditional pre-release recap. I had two pre-releases as usual here in London, Ontario at the Gamers Emporium, Wonderland in Oxford if you're in the area. Yeah, we had a pretty sizable pre-release, which you're seeing video footage of here. On the Saturday, we had 51 players, one of our largest to date. So it ended up being a 6-round long day. Definitely was pretty darn tired by the end of it. I'm going to go over my pre-release pool in just a few minutes from that day, and then the next day on Sunday we had another pre-release, just a smaller one at the store. Of course, you see here the door prizes that we had at the first pre-release. We had those giant cards back from Oath of the Gatewatch, and we had a whole bunch of loot crate items and variant comics that are worth some decent cash there. A whole bunch of Ultimate Guard product, the playmats, the binder, the deck boxes. Tons of awesome stuff there. Really fun day. Everybody seemed to have a lot of fun. Our pre-releases are... I am biased, of course, but our pre-releases are the best in the city. It's a good mix of competitive and casual. There's no real jerks kicking around. We don't get super ridiculously spiky, but we're also certainly not completely new to the game and just playing utterly for fun. It's a great crowd that we have here. I definitely love it. So if you are ever in the area, definitely check out a Gamers Emporium pre-release event. But we are going to get to the first pre-release pool. Spoiler alert, I think it was probably the better of my two pools after today in pre-release number 2. But we're going to get to pre-release pool number 1 right now. So I opened up my packs and sorted by color and, of course, pulled out all the rares, and here's what the rares looked like in my pool. I had a Nahiri's Wrath, a Collective Defiance, an Avacyn's Judgment. Red's looking great. I had an Altered Ego for blue-green if I ended up in there, a Westville Abbey, which could go in a whole bunch of decks, a Coax from the Blind Eternities, which should get ripped up and burnt, and a foil promo Voldaren Pariah, one of the top 10 cards I most wanted to open up. So while red was looking very good, let's start out with white in WUBRG order. Here's my white pool. It's not terribly great. I've got kind of the quote-unquote better cards sorted out towards the bottom. We've got a Faith Unbroken and Abyssinian Missionaries, and then things just drop from there. A Fiendbinder, a Sentry, an Apothecary Geist, a Shepherd. Up in the kind of garbage or the desperate to play pile, we've got Guidance, Hope Against Hope, Lunarch Mantle, Standard Bearer, just nothing. I pretty quickly decided that white was totally out, especially given that there was just 0 rares in the color. Just a bad white pool. Off into blue. Blue's looking a whole lot better. We've got some garbage. We have that Coax, of course, and a couple contingency plans, and a Curious Homunculus, and a Gone Missing, Deny Existence, a Scuttler, Spirit. Those are all fine. Well, Homunculus is not fine unless you're all spells, but they're not great. Down at the bottom, though, we had a Wretched Grift, double Drag Under, Sleep Paralysis, 3 Exultant Cultists, and an Ongoing Investigation. So blue was looking quite strong in a small number of cards for sure, but it was looking strong in those cards. Black was looking relatively strong as well. We had the Voldaren Pariah, plus a couple of Borrowed Malevolences, Rise from the Grave's Ruthless Disposal, Abundant Maw's fine, a couple of Gavanion Hollows if we could get a sacrifice theme going on. Up in the not quite as playable or garbage was the Augmentation, the Cemetery Recruitment, Graph Rats, but no of the other side, unfortunately, the Graveyard Scavengers, I think they're called. Another Dragoon, that's neither here nor there, Crow Dark Tidings. We had a Graph Harvest off to the side, which definitely would have been good if I could have been zombies, but looking at this pile, there's 2 zombies? 3 zombies, I guess if you count the bird. Just not enough zombies to really even consider going a Graph Harvest deck. So black was looking okay, but ultimately just not quite strong enough, I don't think. Off into red, the color that I thought was going to be pretty strong. We had some, trashy or like last pit, like 23rd card playable cards in Borrowed Hostility, Structural Distortion, of course, terrible, Vampire, Fury, Innkeeper, all neither here nor there. Down at the bottom, though, we had Avacyn's Judgment, a Gibbering Fiend, a Villadin Pack Outcast, a Kindred, the Nahiri's Wrath, of course, the Collective Defiance, and then we had 2 Thermo Alchemists and a Weaver of Lightning. That's kind of smelling like a blue-red spells deck that I want to draft really badly, as I've mentioned, and it's kind of starting here in Sealed. Maybe we can end up in that. We'll have to see. Off into green, we've got a couple of playable, decent cards in Courier, Gloom, I guess Survivalists, and Consecrator if you're in the right deck, and then a whole bunch of trash or mediocre cards. Scavenger, Aim High, Builder, Pair of Bloodbriars, Swift Spinner, all pretty mediocre, nothing even slightly making me want to go green. And of course, the fantastic rare of Splendid Reclamation. Yay. Very good card there. Off in the multicoloreds, we had a Morn Willow, a Lashweed Lurker, which is decent, the Altered Ego, of course, that you've already seen, and a Mercurial Geist, yet another step towards a potential blue-red spells deck. Let's check out the color list just before we see what I built. We've got a pair of Cathar Shields, a Cultist Staff, a Thirsting Axe, a True Faith Censer, which is decent, and of course, Little Mr. Westvale Abbey. So, in case you didn't see it on Twitter, or take my giant hints that I've been leveling, I did in fact go blue-red spells. A little bit more creature-heavy than I think the draft version of this deck wants to be, but yeah, blue-red spells, the deck that I'm really excited for in this format. I actually got enough stuff to go for it. So in the 1-drop slot, I had a pair of Borrowed Hostilities. They're not great, especially when I'm creature light, but they were spells. And in sealed, I can't really be too picky or choosy about which spells I play in the spells deck. So I did play a pair of Borrowed Hostilities. In the 2-drop slot, that's where some of the good stuff was. We had the pair of Thermo Alchemists. Those can just go off if you're playing a bunch of instant sorceries. And a Curious Homunculus, in probably the only deck it should ever be played in, the spells deck, so that I could help power out those spells a little bit better, and maybe even flip it someday. Avacyn's Judgment down in the removal slot for 2, and an Ongoing Investigation, just for, you know, just in case I do hit, may as well get some clues out of it, right? The 3-drop slot was stacked. We had the Weaver of Lightning, which pings a creature every time I cast an instant or sorcery, so right into the theme. And 3 Exultant Cultists, which I put to really good use, trump blocking, but more importantly, emerging, which we'll see in a little bit. I had a Nahiri's Wrath, Collective Defiance, Drag Under, and Deny Existence. Great removal counter bounce suite, and getting even more value out of it by pinging with the Alchemists, pinging with the Lightning, and making the Mercurial Geist a little bit bigger. Speaking of Mercurial Geist, here they are in the 4-drop slot, along with Wretched Gryff and Scuttler. Yes, those are 7 and 8 drops, but realistically in my deck, with so many 3 drops, especially the Cultists, they were really 4 drops, a significant portion of the time. And then we had a Sleep Paralysis for even more removal. Off in the 5-drop slot, I have the Lashweed Lurker. It's, again, an 8-drop, but it felt more like a 5 or 6-drop. I just had to get my green out for it, and a Gone Missing as well for another bounce, and another clue, because why not? May as well get some clues while I can. Finally, off in the far right slot, we had the Altered Ego, which I was splashing for, along with the Lashweed Lurker and the activated ability of Ongoing Investigations, just as a bomb, just as, you know, make something big, make a big flyer, whatever, and get in for some more. And I had the Westvale Abbey, because why not? Maybe I get there. Maybe I get the 5 lands. If not, I can at least make a chump blocker, things like that. So, that's what the deck looked like, and how did it do? Was blue-red spells in any way okay? Well, it actually was pretty darn okay. I'm not going to go match by match. I don't have notes written down, and there was a lot going on. I also judged these events, so I was running around, so I didn't have time for notes. But I did go 4 and 2. I lost round, I believe, round 4 and round 6. I lost the last round, I lost round 4. I was 3-0 going into round 4, feeling quite good with this deck. I didn't quite think it was all there to start with, but you really had to play with it to see. Getting the Alchemist down on turn 2 just represented a huge clock, especially when I started removing things with Judgment and Defiance and bouncing them with Drag Under and just tacking on a couple of damage to every single one. Mercurial Geists were amazing. I definitely did some really, really high-powered turns where I would cast a Borrowed Hostility on one, giving it +6/+0 and First Strike, swinging in the air for 7. One match I had even Altered Ego'd a Mercurial Geist, and I swung in the air for 19 after a pair of Borrowed Hostilities were cast. As I said, Exultant Cultists are the dream creature to sacrifice to emerge creatures, especially to Wretched Gryff. Paying 4 mana, or sorry, 3 mana actually, because Wretched Gryff is only a 6 emerge. Paying 3 mana to get a 3/4 flyer and draw 2 cards is incredible. That is something you're going to want to look to draft. Absolutely. Lashweed Lurker was fantastic. As I said, the bounce and removal suite was great in the set. Collective Defiance is a total bomb. Curious Homunculus, I never quite got to flip. People were terrified of it flipping, and I never really cared. So I was glad when I saw people spend removal on it. But it definitely did help me ramp out some spells, so pretty solid there. As well, I did also get a whole bunch of clues off of Mercurial Geist for a while, just getting in for one, getting a clue, getting in for one, getting a clue. So yeah, 4 and 2, I got 11th place, which resulted in me getting 3 packs. Not too bad, especially considering I was playing a very sort of gimmicky deck here, but I am so looking forward to playing this in Draft. So that was my first pre-release. What about my second one? Well, my second one, today as of recording, today is still Sunday, I went and I opened up and I sorted out my rares, and here they were, a ton of them, 10 rares in fact, out of 6 packs plus the promo. Spirit of the Hunt and Sage of Ancient Lore in green, they're fine. They're not great. You really need a whole bunch of wolves for Spirit of the Hunt to be super good, and even then it's not great. It's just a 3/3 flash, but it's still fine. In black, we had a Distended Mindbender and a Newscraft Mob. Those are very good. Blue, we had Docent of Perfection. Where was that yesterday? Also, very important, Docent of Perfection does not flip when you have 3 wizards. Docent of Perfection flips when you cast an instant or sorcery spell and then have 3 wizards. So you can't just get 3 wizards and flip this. Make sure that you do know that. I had a Declaration in Stone, quite solid, and then we had the lovely trio of Brain in a Jar, Promo Lupine Prototype, and Gyro Reach Sanitarium. Absolutely horrid. So yeah, I got 10 rares, but could have burned 3 of them. And then we had a foil, you can't quite see it in this picture, but a foil, Gisa and Geralf. So that was already pushing me, I was already being pushed a little bit towards black, and I really wanted to try out the Docent. Declaration of Stone, very good, and Gisa and Geralf helps me go black a little bit more. But let's look at the pool and see what it looks like. Well, here's my white to start with. We have a Sigardian Priest, fantastic. The Declaration of Stone, of course. Pious Evangel, very good. Shieldmate, decent. 3 Sentries. The first one I think is probably always playable. Second and third, who knows. Merlin Drifter's decent. And then kind of filler up at the top. Faithbearer Paladins. Some garbage cards like Machinations and Iron Rites Cleansing. A third Faithbearer Paladin actually up there. An Ox Captain. You know, cards that you would play if you were looking to fill out your deck, but nothing to pull me into white. So really, we're looking at the Priest and the Stone, I think, as being the major draws into white. Not too much. Off into blue, we've got very little unplayable. We've got a pair of Enlightened Maniacs, a Take Inventory, and Ghostly Wings. Down at the bottom, we've got a Reckless Scholar, an Ingenious Scab, a Spontaneous Mutation, a Docent of Perfection, a Drown Your Behemoth, Sleep Paralysis. Just great, solid cards. There's only 6 of them, unfortunately, but they're solid. So blue's looking okay, but we're going to need something more to go along with this. Black, we're looking at a Dusk Feaster, Olivia's Dragoon, a Murderous Compulsion, Succumb to Temptation, the Midnight Scavengers, Graph Rats pair, Distended Mindbender, a Ghoulsteed, Newscraft Mob. Black's looking fantastic. Up in the filler, we've got a couple Wailing Ghouls, a Cutthroat, a Vessel, Rottenheart Ghoul, Weirded Vampire Hound. Stuff that could go in to help us fill out, maybe if we go blue-black. Off in red, we've got Fiery Temper, Lightning Axe, Savage Alliance. Fantastic cards. And then nothing else. We've got a pair of Bold Impalers, a pair of Stensia Banquets, Insatiable Gorgers, Build and Pack Outcast is good, Voldaren Duelist, sure. But, man, 3 solid removal spells and then just nothing to back that color up. Off into green, wow. I had so little red, look at all the green here. And look at all of that in the unplayable / filler pile. Woodland Patrols, Intrepid Provisioner, Mockery of Nature, Crop Sigil, Primal Druid, more Woodcutter's Grits, even more Woodland Patrols, Bloodbriar Clipwings, just pure filler. And then, of course, we get Spirit of the Hunt, Hermit, Tangleclaw Werewolf. We get a Howlpack Resurgence that we can't really use because we have like 4 wolves. Yeah, that is probably the largest pile of a color of cards I've ever seen in Sealed without it being even really playable at all. So, RIP green. Off in the multicolored, we have our foil Gisa and Geralf, another Mercurial Geist, and a Ride Down. All 3 pretty decent. Mercurial Geist much better if there's a blue-red spells deck, but there really wasn't, unfortunately. Off in the colorless, we have not too much going on either. We've got a Field Creeper, we've got that Brain in the Jar, the prototype, Epitaph Golem, Cultist Staff, a pair of Nephalia Academies, a Warped Landscape, and a Gyro Reach Sanitarium. Not much going on at all. So we did in fact end up in blue-black zombies, but also attempting to make the Docent of Perfection work out. It wasn't a good pool. It wasn't a good pool, so I just kind of went with what I could get here. So off in the 1-drop slot, we've got a Spontaneous Mutation, which frankly worked out just as well as I thought it would. This got a relatively low grade from a lot of people. I think even LRcast gave it a relatively low grade, and I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I was frequently casting this as a -5, -6. Sometimes it was even up to -10. It was super rarely dead. I think it was only dead once. It's a good card. It's not premium removal. It's not a first pick by any way, shape, or form, but it's decent. So I was pretty happy with Spontaneous Mutation. Off in the 2-drop slot, we've got a pair of Dragoons, we've got our Graph Rats, Declaration Stone we splashed for, Murderous Compulsion, Take Inventory. The single Take Inventory was just there to get another instant or sorcery into my deck, and just to get another piece of card draw. I was not seeing anything else that would really fit, and I really wanted to flip that Docent at some point. Reckless Scab and Genius Scab hanging out in the 3-drop creature slot, and a Succumb to Temptation. Or sorry, not Reckless Scab, Reckless Scholar. All quite solid cards. Very happy to have them. Could have used some more 3-drops though. The 4-drop slot was a little bit heavy. With Sleep Paralysis, Enlightened Maniac, we did have to play one of those. Weirded Vampire, Rotten Heart Ghoul, not good, but I could recur it with Gisa and Geralf. Off in the 5-drop slot, even more full. This was a heavy curved deck. Ghoul Steed, Midnight Scavengers, Drownyard Behemoth, Hound of the Farbogs, Distended Mindbender, and the Docent of Perfection. In the 6-drop slot, just the Lonely Noosecraft Mob. Fantastic card. But that was all we had at 6. And at 7 we had Dusk Feaster, who hopefully would be 5. But 7 to start with. So this pool, unfortunately, did not take me to the same levels that the first pool did. I ended up 2 and 3. I was going into the finals. This was the 17-person event, so it was 5 rounds. I was going into the finals at 2 and 2, and had I have won, I would have made top 8 and gotten 3 packs. But unfortunately, I did lose that final round. The deck was really kind of all over the place. The Docent of Perfection, I made 1 wizard once. That was it. I simply did not have enough instant sorceries, so really it was just kind of functioning as a 5/4 flyer for 5, which is still fine, but wasn't quite getting where I wanted to. The Declaration Stone was definitely a solid splash. I got rid of a lot of things there. The Graph Rats, Midnight Scavengers, Chittering Host combo did work a few times. I think I flipped it 3 times, and I think every time it either won me the game or got me pretty darn close. It did get Murderous Compulsion once, which was a little bit of a pain, but I got in for a bunch of damage there. Yeah, there's just a lot of suboptimal cards in here. The Weirded Vampire, the Rotten Heart Ghoul, even the Hound of the Farbogs is not that good. Distended Mindbender was fantastic. Noosecraft is amazing. Gisa and Geralf, if you draft around them, I think is going to be incredible. Dusk Feaster, I think is definitely better than I gave it credit for. I don't think it's still incredible. I don't think it's ever a first pick, but I think it is still pretty solid as well. But yeah, unfortunately, 2 and 3. As you can see, my curve is a little bit high, so I did get just kind of run down a few times. But 2 and 3 in this event, 4 and 2 in my first event. Pretty solid Eldritch Moon pre-release. I'm very excited to draft this set, especially blue-red spells. I think it's going to be so much fun. Same with blue-black zombies, but I think you do really want to get that Gisa and Geralf to super go into blue-black zombies. But I'm super excited about this. Let me know how your pre-release went. I know some of you have already commented on the set reviews, telling me how it went, telling me that you 4-0'd and 1 pre-releases, and that's awesome to hear. I want to hear down below how you did in your pre-release. What were your all-star cards? What were your surprise cards? What cards did you think were terrible but were good? Which cards did you think were good but were terrible? Let me know down below. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at @TheManaLeek. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/TheManaLeek and twitch.tv/TheManaLeek. You've already found me here on YouTube. You've got that comment section down below. Make use of it. Click that thumbs up icon if you like my content. Click subscribe if you want to see more. There will be an Eldritch Moon Crack-a-Pack on Tuesday. In 2 days from now, Eldritch Moon Crack-a-Pack. And then, of course, we'll be back to our usual Wacky Wednesdays, Top 10 Thursdays, and Spiky Saturdays. Spiky Saturday this week will be a behind-the-shoulder draft from my very first Eldritch Moon FNM draft, so stay tuned for that. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.